Hello and welcome to Connect to Love here on PRN-FM, where each week is a journey into the many facets of love, oneness, and the human spirit. I'm Lisa LaRose, and I'm joined by my co-host, Michael J. Russ. I want to say welcome, Michael. It's such a delight. We have so many wonderful conversations, both on the air and off the air. It's always so much fun to play with you, exploring the many facets of love. So I want to say welcome to you.
Thank you so much. I always have a great time and I look forward to these shows. It's a time in life, a time in the day and the week that we get to share thoughts. We're on the same wavelength, and that wavelength is a very high frequency wavelength. And I'm loving it. I always do. I'm inspired to move into the next week with the thoughts that we discuss on every show and to apply them. And they're beautiful.
So you're absolutely right. Our conversations are always so high frequency, and that's because we talk about love. Unscripted for an hour. Whatever comes through, it's meant to come through. We've done so many episodes over the years, and no matter what's going on in my week or your week, we leave it all behind for this 1 hour of time because our topic is love.
That is true. And we have a great topic today. I know we do. And we don't. Why don't you tell our audience what we're going to go into today?
Thank you, Michael. Well, it's funny how sometimes the universe whispers to us in the most ordinary moments, and we almost miss it. Well, this week I almost missed it. I had one of those days this week where the universe just kept repeating itself until I finally stopped and listened. And it started innocently enough. I was checking out at the store, and the woman behind the register, she had such sweet, warm energy, and she glanced outside and said to me, "It's a beautiful day, you know," and I agreed. Walked out, didn't think twice about it. And then on my drive home, I called a friend, and we were talking about life, the usual stuff, and she kept punctuating everything with this phrase, "you know. Things have been really intense lately, you know. I'm trying to trust the process, you know. Sometimes it's all about surrender, you know." And it wasn't annoying, but it definitely caught my attention. And then later that evening when I was relaxing watching one of the interviews that you sent me, the guest was so brilliant, insightful, articulate, really tuned in, and guess what? You know? Every other phrase. People are waking up, you know? The shift is happening, you know? The planet is changing, you know? And after an hour of conversation, that phrase must come up, 50 times, maybe more. And suddenly I'm sitting there thinking, okay, universe, I'm listening. What are you trying to tell me? And I thought to myself, this wasn't random. 3 people, 3 different conversations, 1 phrase, 1 day, divine synchronicity. And that's when I started to wonder, because you know I'm the woman of wonder. What if it isn't just a linguistic habit? What if it's something deeper? What if every time we say it, we're actually pointing to a truth that's already alive inside all of us? So what if we're walking around subconsciously affirming to each other, "You already know. The truth is in you. Trust what you know." And that's the question. Perhaps the phrase "you know." Maybe it's a type of linguistic, like a self-affirmation, that humanity is attempting to anchor into a higher consciousness. And perhaps you know is a bridge between the mind and the heart, the intellect and the intuition. And it's guiding us to go to a deeper connection into our knowing. There is a field called NLP, and it stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And when I was looking at this idea of you know, thinking to myself, maybe it's not about somebody seeking an agreement, but perhaps it's about checking inward. That each one of us, when we're saying you know, we're actually asking ourselves, do I know this? And that's what opened up this entire conversation for today's episode. There was an expression many years ago, and I think it's still as appropriate today, is that when you know, you know, you know. And I've always felt that way with my intuition. I don't know about you, Michael. Do you sort of, when you know something at a core level, you know it, and there's no dissuading you from that path? Is that the way that you feel about when you know, you know?
Yeah, I do. I agree with 110%. I see it kind of as reminder. We already know it, what we're saying, and yeah, it's a segue, but yeah, it's also, I agree with the concept of it being a bridge to knowing, and that checking inward to assure that we know we are already knowing that information, and we maybe have forgotten it, and maybe we're moving forward. But it's an interesting turn of phrase, when you know, you know. It's I remember it being used way back when too. They understood it. When you know, because this is the thing. It is, and I love it. I love it. I think today I agree with you with the consciousness, global consciousness, that we're using that instead of in terms of segueing between one thought and another thought. But it's all, you and I both know, there are no original thoughts. All the thoughts are out there in the global consciousness already, and all we're doing is just pulling it out when we need it.
Yeah, you're right, but I do agree with you. It's not just a filler. I think what it's doing right now, it's sort of a collective pattern, and we're seeking resonance with something. I'm not quite sure what it is. Perhaps it's a shared understanding. As you said, it can be a conversational anchor, sort of an unconscious way of checking in, whether the listener is even listening to us. We say, whether somebody has actually tuned us out. And sometimes we'll use, sort of just by connection or even affirm a shared experience. And I try to be conscious of it when we're on the show, because I noticed that I was saying it too. I picked it up. So I kind of, just as we speak every week, I'm looking at myself, and then I'm looking at how is it that this became so unconscious, but really perhaps we're reinforcing a belief or accessing a state of an intuitive knowing that we've already embodied. And so I love playing with you, and I think that this is a fantastic way to sort of explore this. And when we look at when you know, again, it's that intuitive recognition. Moments when that truth lands in, not just intellectually, but we feel it in the body. As we said, you feel it in your heart, you feel it in your gut. When you know something, I know for me that I'm just steadfast in what I'm going to do. If I know I can do something, and I know I can, I will just pursue it to the nth degree. How about you?
Yeah, well, you commit to it. You commit to it big time, because you're that certain of your own knowing that you do that. And yeah, we do have a tendency to defend what we know because we see it as truth to the ends of the earth, so to speak. I in the past would use it as, are we on the same page? If I say, are we? You get what I'm saying. You get what I'm saying, which is another derivative of. Do you understand where I'm going with this? You can use a bunch of different little fillers like that, or lines, questions to see if you and the person you're speaking with are on the same page. Do you get what I'm saying? Yeah. So I agree. I think that it's deeper. It's as many times as it's being said right now. It has a deeper meaning, and I love the idea of exploring it on this show, because where else are listeners here on PRN FM going to get a deeper understanding of a simple term of
I know.
Yeah,
I do know.
Like, hey,
you know.
We're talking about on the show, and maybe it'll make our listeners more conscious. I hope so, of them saying it themselves, and to give it a second or third thought, not just to let it go by. Because there's a lot of we're talking about in past episodes, and even with Carol Collins and the teachers, that we already know. We're basically just remembering what it is, why we're here, what we're here for, what true love really is. We're remembering a lot of things right now. People are waking up to remembering that they are in control of their sovereignty, who they are as a sovereign being, and that they have the ability to control. And the waking up is all about taking back control of your own mind, body, and connection to something greater than yourself. That's really what all it is. Recognizing that the system that you've been, whose rules you've been playing by, the rules have been skewed, they've been fixed, and they've been skewed to take away your control and to dumb you down and to render you helpless in the face of everything else that's out there. And you are such a magnificent being. We all are. We're magnificent human beings. And as Dr. David Clement was saying today on the episode, the interview with Pam Gregory today, one of the most fabulous pieces of work that we'll have a whole nother show on, hopefully in the next week or two. But the idea of the fact that it's not even the idea, the knowing that you are the most magnificent expression of source energy, infinite potential. You're walking infinite potential, yet people have self-doubt, shame, self-judgment, right? And he's going, no. Like, do you understand that you'll laugh about that when you ever said that about yourself, when you realize that you have been in control all along, let everybody else make all the choices and decisions for you. You're letting external circumstances dictate how you're feeling, what you're thinking, which direction you're going, what you're choosing, right? You've been convinced that the money is what you should be going after, what you should be choosing, and whatever makes the most money. And that, we know where that got us, right? That gets you a bunch of I'm not worthy. That's where that goes. And what you're talking about here is really when you know, you commit. When you intuitively know you're a sovereign being and that you have had this power all along, and now you've just awakened to the fact that, oh, wait a minute, hang on. Who's been selling me this box of goods? I mean, who's been doing this for? I have been believing that all my life that I had to allow external circumstances to make the choices for me. No. You've always had the ability to choose. You have always been a powerful being with the ability to create whatever reality that you saw for yourself. And waking up to that knowing is a mind-blowing experience, because it renders pretty much most of what you've thought up to this particular point, just renders it irrelevant, completely irrelevant. And that's an awesome feeling. It's a very powerful feeling when you know, you wake up and realize that much of what you thought or believed up to this particular point that has made you feel less than, that has made you judge yourself, made you feel shame, that has made you feel unloved and alone, all of that is just nonsense, as Dr. David Clement just called it, nonsense, right? It's nonsense to even think about you being anything but the creative being that you're part of the universe. You're part of the creation of the universe. That's not something you take lightly, and it's not something that you judge yourself badly about. We have been somehow had our mind controlled by from birth by institutions, parents that maybe didn't know better, that to believe that we are simply less than until we can prove we're more than, when really we've always been more than. We've always been more than.
Well, and it actually comes back to knowing that we are more than. And I think that's where that knowing, that phrase, is coming into being. And it's interesting you brought up sovereignty, because I was thinking about when I kept hearing him and everybody around me saying, more often than not, I couldn't help but think that this affirmation is helping us move from seeking external approval to owning our own narrative.
Right.
And it's a shift to that personal sovereignty, which we speak about, owning what I know, knowing that this is what I know. And in neuro-linguistic programming, it's interesting because you will select a phrase, and it becomes an embedded command, and which is why I brought up NLP. So every time we say it's as though we're establishing a common ground for a known truth, whether the listener agrees or not. We're saying to ourselves, I know. We're saying that to our brain. And that's what NLP does. So sometimes they'll actually touch the other person on the shoulder and you'll repeat the phrase. And instead of saying, I know, we're saying, you know. And I think it's similar to that why question. And I do love Dr. Bruce Lipton, and he has done so much work on epigenetics and programming the subconscious mind. And he speaks about how our spoken word, when repeated, it acts as a self-hypnotic suggestion. Yeah. So perhaps billions of repetitions of you know or I know is being subconsciously put into this grid, into the collective unconscious, affirming that we have a right, that sovereignty, as you're talking about, Michael, to own our knowledge as well as our sovereignty. And it's affecting us, I believe, on a cellular level, because that's even what Dr. David Clemens speaks about, how things are changing. And he spoke about core intelligence and that love is at core intelligence. And so I think to myself, perhaps these are signals, kind of like the stoplights, green light, go. Now it's like, you know. And it's a quiet vibrational input of certainty that I can say, well, do I know? Yes, I know. I know. Yes, you know. And that's how things unfold. I have a friend of mine, he said when he saw his future wife come down the stairs, she was a dancer, and he said she was like this vision. And he said when he saw her walk down those stairs, he knew that would be his wife. And he said, I knew. I just knew. And so I could say, you know, and that's in regard to romantic love. But there's other ways that you can affirm and know something for other things as well, as you said, Michael, that you are knowing that you no longer need to be controlled, that I can have sovereignty of my thought. And I think that that's exactly what it is. It's a subtle way of we're re-owning the knowledge instead of seeking that external validation.
Oh, yeah. I agree. We're going to wake up sooner or later to certain things every day. We're going to wake up to how it feels, how when we start to love ourselves and see ourselves as the true beings, the brilliant beings that we are, brilliant creators, and we start to live from that, there'll be a lot more of that knowing that comes our way. As I think we were talking about before, with Carol Collins, about divine inspiration, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know whether it's innate to who we are. Divine inspiration is innate to who we are. And when we begin to live from it instead of inspiration that we think comes from our head or something external, then that will change things for us. Just like when Dr. David Clemens talked about when we recognize fully that our hearts are source intelligence. When we start to live from that, we perceive our hearts as being the creative source intelligence that it really is. Then knowing that will change everything. It's kind of
right.
What's that Rumi? There's something I do not know, the knowing of which could change everything. One of my favorite quotes, actually my all-time favorite quote from Rumi, and I haven't said it in a long time. However, it does have the word knowing, right?
It does have that word
back
knowing
in the 13th century, talking about knowing, right? There's something I do not know, the knowing. It's a heck of a conundrum. It really, really is. Every time I think about that, it's something I do not know, the knowing of which could change everything. Yeah, that's right. It could. Knowing is that powerful in our lives as a tool for moving forward, creativity, inspiration, creating and designing the narrative of our own narrative, life narrative, versus having external circumstances dictate that narrative. Right now, in our world, everybody knows it, external circumstances are dictating a lot of people's narratives. Our narrative of how we feel, what we're thinking, how we respond, and that's what we've been taught. However, as I come to understand it, and I know you're very clear on this as well, that this is the next several months is a really powerful time for energy upgrades. And we have to not only know that these are coming our way and how to really position ourselves for them, which perhaps we can talk about in another show. But the fact that we have that knowingness is going to get even greater as a result of energy upgrades. And the portal of our portal of understanding who we are, why we're here, really, and it's not just to go to college and go get a job and save for retirement. It's greater than that. And right now, in this day and age, things are going to change in a very, very dramatic manner. And, somebody said the other day, I hate change. They said, I hate change. And I'm going, you hate change. Okay. Do you not like the person you were 5 minutes ago? Since we talked,
so
is
true.
that what you're telling me? You can't stand not being that person you were 5 minutes ago or yesterday? Because, listen, everything about you changes. Everything about you changes. I mean, in the next 5 minutes, you could sprain your ankle. That's change, right?
Sure.
You just basically deal with it and move forward.
Or you could get the winning lottery ticket, and that would change a lot of things, right?
Yeah. You could meet the love of your life in the next 5 minutes, and that would change. And they go, yeah, I don't like change. What is it that you don't like about change? Because evolution, transformation, that's just change, and it happens every moment. Every piece of new information that you are exposed to changes you in some way because it impacts your thinking, right? It just does that. So you're not the same person you were a second ago. That person's gone. And when I love this that conversation. That was Bashar. That had a whole piece about that, a narrative about that, about you're not the same person you were a second ago. What are you talking about? You're different, right? Some cells have died, some new cells have been created. You're not that same person. And it's like, no, we keep thinking that things are static, that they never change, when in essence they always change. They're forever changing, continually. And if they didn't change, you'd be dead.
Right.
Really. Because everything in your body is progressing and changing. So
even if you were dead, you would still be changing. You'd be evolving into something else.
You would
maybe
exit
growing
your body.
As a tree. Right.
Right. You would exit your body. Your soul never dies. So you would basically transition from this body, changing to non-physical again. You're changing. Right. Yeah, you're changing. And it's like, what's not to like? I mean, you don't have to. Our perceptions are always that if things change, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know what I'll think. I don't know how I'll feel. But you're already feeling. You're already experiencing change. So you have lots of experience at it. We just convince ourselves that we don't. Right. And we play along that narrative of fear of change. That's
right, but
narrative.
Change is another word for evolving. And thank goodness we evolve. And humanity, as Bashar said, is evolving from mental processing to a heart-based knowledge. And that it's that heart-based knowledge, I think, that is where that, may be sort of like a breadcrumb on this path. I had an opportunity many years ago. The HeartMath Institute did some programs here in Pittsburgh. And so I did a 3-day workshop, and it was fantastic. And what I learned was the heart sends more signals to the brain than the brain sends to the heart. And that when you are in a coherent state, that's when you have those intuitive states, the clarity, the deeper connection, and it really allows us to access that divine intelligence. So when you know, that's that intuitive click moment, that we have that access to that divine intelligence. And one of the tools that actually I bought one that the HeartMath Institute sell is called an M-Wave, and it's a little device that wraps around the finger, and it's a coherence coach, and it teaches you a way to breathe so that you will go into a coherent state. But the most powerful way to put your heart in a coherent state is to think about gratitude and think about the things that you love. And with the M-Wave, it has little games, and one of them is really sweet. It's a little boy, and there's a planet there, And you can, every time you drop into a coherent state, it sends hearts from his heart to the planet. And there's another one that it will build a rainbow. And the only way that you can build that rainbow is by dropping into that state of heart coherence. It's absolutely fantastic. It's such a great thing. And it really does help you sort of stay in alignment and resonance and sort of tune with source, which David Clements talked about. Now, he did a lot of work. I don't know if he has worked with the HeartMath Institute or not, but he's done a lot of work with heart coherence as well. And he's a theoretical physicist, so this is sort of quite a bit different. But he said that when we are in that coherent rhythm, he said, our intuitive knowing bypasses that logical, fearful mind. And I think that that's really, and perhaps maybe that's why we're all saying, because we're in, as there's chaos and whatever else is going on in the world, we're trying to bypass that logical fear that's being bombarded at us from every direction and going back into that heart where we literally know our truth.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I agree. No, I agree 110%. I mean, even today, we talk about change. My whole perspective, my perceptions about our heart, and it's over the last couple of weeks, my perceptions about the heart have changed dramatically. About it being the true source of our intelligence. And it's not our heads. We keep thinking it's all IQ and all that and giving it a number to quantify it. However, the heart intelligence, source intelligence of our heart is unquantifiable. You can't quantify it. And that nothing that comes from that you're limited in what your brain can actually produce. You're limited. It all comes from the heart. When you drop into the heart, that's where the magic happens for us. And we have been taught not to do that. We have been taught to shut the heart down and to get with the program and think, get your head on straight. All these little euphemisms that we have here and around the world, there are different ones. Get your head on straight. Your head's out of whack. You need to start thinking straight. And all these things that are related to the head. To keep us from understanding our true intelligence, or the true source of our intelligence, and our connection to love. Love being
Absolutely.
The most creative force and energy in the world, in the universe, period. In the trillions and trillions of galaxies that exist out there, love is the common denominator between us and other beings, us and other planets, us and other civilizations. It's love. Love is the common denominator of that brings us, that ties us all together. It's the one thing we have in common, and it is the creative force in the universe. So why have we been taught the opposite?
Mm-hmm.
With all the, it's as if, in all the books and all the movies and all the TV programs and all of that, love is dumbed down. It's something that some people have and other people don't. The concept of loneliness is the opposite, the dark side of love, of being alone, not having love, and that you have to somehow go outside of yourself to some external this or that to actually experience love. Because nobody teaches you how to love yourself. That's not 100%. Taught in school. It's the first thing you're taught in kindergarten or preschool, how to love yourself and how to love others. How the world would be different if that was the foundation of everything, of your life, is an understanding that you love, and we are collectively one. It's like there was this example of Ubuntu, which is a South African term that it's something that is so amazing. It's so foreign to us with regard to what it really means and how you go about it. And it's this person, this group of kids, this guy wanted to get teach the concept of winning and losing. And so he gets a bunch of kids together, and he says, the first one to the tree wins. And these kids, they started running towards the tree, but they looked back and they saw who was last. And they slowed down and went and got that person, that kid, and to get to the tree together, so they could all get to the tree at the same time.
That's beautiful.
That's really a visual of Ubuntu. That's what Ubuntu means. We're all one. We're all in this together, right? So that concept, and the person said, no. There's got to be a winner. There's got to be a loser. That's the world we live in. And it's like, no, that's not the world we live in. The world they were taught to live in from childhood, their earliest childhood, is that we're all in this together, and we lift each other up. We elevate each other. And how different would the world be again if we had that mentality? There's some things come out of Africa that are just absolutely brilliant, yet it's perceived in the world as, a backwards country, a backwards continent. And it's really not. It's just living from the earth, living from principles that are timeless, and that when we get back to them, everything changes. Everything changes. We already know that, we just keep looking in another direction. We've been taught to look in another direction. And doesn't it get tiring looking in the other direction? It's so much easier to live from love, to be connected to it, to live from it, and to make choices from it. And I'm finding myself more and more doing just that of late, just putting some extra intention and effort into thinking from love instead of seeing it as something that some sort of external circumstance validates. That okay, this is it. This is the core of everything right here. This is the foundation from which I'm going to think and act and speak and make choices. Wow, it's coming along really well. I have more. I'm calmer, and I used to be. I haven't been really crazy. My life isn't crazy. However, whenever I hear something, I recognize that, okay, when I perceive that, am I perceiving it from a perspective of love, or am I perceiving it from a perspective of discord, or am I bringing some lower level emotion into it? And it's fun choosing the opposite, choosing to go unlike maybe you would have chosen in the past. External circumstances being as they are.
And that's what I love about this show, Michael, because a few episodes ago we did the whole show about the voice of love. And I re-listened to it, and then I re-listened to it again. There were so many things that you and I spoke about that I have really, truly embodied. And as you said, I've become more cognizant of my choices. I'll take that moment to breathe and step back and really embody it. And I think perhaps maybe that's why I became sort of conscious of the presence of all around me. And it really, because I kept thinking to myself, okay, I'm bringing myself, what would love do? What would love do? And I keep asking that question, and I remind those who are in challenges around me the same thing. They may not embrace it to the same degree that I am, but it's my work. This is my journey. I can only answer to myself, and I can only do the best I can every day. But I find that it's becoming easier and easier to sort of step in and just it becomes second nature. I think Michael Beckwith teaches a lot about our words and how they create our world. When we have different pauses, instead of saying, I'm frustrated or I don't like change, you can put it in the past. I felt frustrated, but now I'm a different person. Now I'm embracing love. Now I'm consciously choosing to be in a completely different energy state and just shift it that easily. Or as Carol Collins said, if you're having a challenging day, find something to love on. Even if it's a screensaver on your phone, or go through your photos and go back to a time when you experienced love. And one of my favorite things that I took from that episode with Pam Gregory and David Clements was that he said, love is the creator of all. Of all. And so if I'm speaking those words into being, even if I am using that filler, I'm affirming it maybe perhaps to myself. And I'm aligning that with the oneness that we speak about and that connection. And then I can sort of, and what I've recognized too is it's becoming easier and easier for me to affirm my own sovereignty, being confident in my knowing. And I'm finding myself, I don't look for others for agreement. I may have a conversation with you and say, hey, what do you think about the topic for the show? And that's what I so love about you, because it seems that we're always on the same wavelength. You'll send me something, and yeah, it is. It's really great.
Yeah, that's so absolutely true. So true. It is. It's one of those things that we are always on the same page. That's why I enjoy talking to you so much. We're always reading the same things, listening to the same things, and we share and give each other a different perspective, and give our own perspective and sort of our own understanding of it, and we can have a conversation about it. It's interesting because on this topic of our conversing, it's a special thing when you can have someone who's on your same wavelength to discuss things like this with, to bounce things off of, and without judgment. There's no judgment. It's only a love-based conversation. And for all of our listeners here on PRN-FM and our podcast, Connect to Love, when you come across somebody who's on the same wavelengths as you, don't just shuffle it off. Just don't think, that's just a one-off. It is possible to derive a connection from that, to cultivate a connection where you can speak with somebody. It's always good to have somebody outside of your circle of influence that is on the same wavelength as you, that you can just talk with, and discuss ideas and grow together, which is what we're doing. We're growing together. For the 3+ years we've been doing this show, we've grown a lot together. Our spiritual understanding has increased. Our concept of metaphysics has expanded. Our concept of love has expanded dramatically, and we've used ourselves as an example for our audience here, because we're not perfect, and nobody is. We're just, let's put it this way. I heard this the other day, and I thought it was absolutely brilliant, that in every moment we are perfect as we are in that moment, and that's it. In the next moment, you're as perfect as you are in that moment. And we have to realize that is it. That is the way we live. We don't get down on ourselves because we think someone's external idea of perception is that we don't meet that. That's when we start beating ourselves up, getting down on ourselves for not being something like something outside of us. When we have all the control inside of ourselves to be perfect right here, right now, in this moment. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, and you're perfect in that moment. The next moment takes care of itself.
Beautiful.
It takes care of itself. And then I can say after that, you know what I mean?
You know?
When you know you're perfect, That's all there is to it.
Yeah. You're right, Michael, and that's when you find people that are in resonance with you, and it's a field that grows stronger, and you have more and more individuals that come into your field. There was somebody that I met at one of the events that I did, and she introduced herself as an intuitive detective, and I thought, wow, that's pretty interesting. And I thought, I kind of do the same thing. I always like puzzles, and I think that's why I looked at languaging, and when something comes up, I don't just see it as a coincidence. How many coincidences before it becomes more than that? I feel like, and I think that's what I said to you. I said, this is really coming up quite a bit. And so perhaps it's a shared field of knowing that exists beneath our words. So there's this field of love, and then there's the field of knowing. And Carol Collins does a whole once a month, Our Knowing is the title of the workshop that she does. And so there's the teachers, perhaps it's our guides that are trying to get us to pay attention from a spiritual conscious perspective, that love is always a part of us. It's not just an emotion. It's the essence of who we are. As you said, we come in at birth. It sustains and connects us all, this love. So many traditions will have taken us away from that. As you said, there's the Aboriginals, who are really the originals. There's the tribe that a friend of mine went to live with in Africa, and he said it was really amazing. He said they were so telepathic and they were so connected to each other. They were way out in the bush, and at night it would be so pitch black, but those kids would still be playing soccer as if the lights were on and it was daylight. And they would climb trees, and they knew where there were snakes, and because they were part of the all. The universe is a part of us, and perhaps maybe it is that heart intelligence, but every act of creation, every spark of wisdom, every wisdom that we share or what we learn from each other connects us. And so maybe when we're saying with those who we're in resonance with, it may be just affirming that. It's that shared link of heart-based knowing. Like, I see you, but instead we're saying, you feel it? You feel it too? This is the truth. This is love speaking. You know? So you know what I mean?
So true. I love it. Yeah, that is so true. We have we've expanded our horizons, and I'm loving the heck out of it. It's a joy to know that the joy and the happiness and the love that I'm feeling for myself and my life is emanating from within. And so many people, I think there was a study, and I might have said this before in another show, but there was in the United States a study or some kind of survey that reflected that 30% of people feel alone. And I'm like, that's a really high number. 30% of people feeling alone. And I asked myself, why do they feel alone? And the answer that came to me was because they're looking to external circumstances instead of within themselves. Their aloneness is based on some perception of their external circumstances. They're bought into an idea that perhaps that if they don't have this, if they're not with this person, if they're not with those people, if they're not in that place, then they're alone. And I know we're never alone, right? The knowing that and this is another knowing. We talk about it a lot, but and Carol Collins and the teachers tell us all the time, we're never alone. We're never alone. We have non-physical beings around us all the time to help guide us. They can't do anything unless we ask, and they can't just take over and drive the car. We're driving the car. We're making the choices through free will, go left versus right. Even though they keep telling us subtly, in one way or another, go right. When you go right, you're going to get closer to your life's purpose. When you go left, you're going to get farther away from it. But you know what? You made that choice. Let's go have that experience. And right. So you're not alone. The perception that you're alone is driving the feeling of being alone. But you're not. And some people, there could be a myriad of different reasons, of course, but when I look at this whole concept of, I remember one thing. What I say I to, I become. What I say I to, I become. And if I say I'm this or I'm that, I have to take that with a it's not a grain of salt thing. I'm actually programming my reality.
Right.
I say I'm alone. I'm programming my reality to reflect that I'm alone. It's just reflected right back at me. It's mirrored right back to me. And I'll be watching something on television that will validate that I'm alone. Right? Nobody will call. It'll validate that I'm alone. It's just that's what we keep doing, and we keep creating this reality for ourselves that is not what we want because that's what we're focused on. Because what we focus on is what we get. So let's focus on, maybe if you feel alone, let's shift the narrative to one of self-love. Maybe take a detox bath in some extremely inexpensive Epsom salt, right? Magnesium salt bath. If you can do it, that's the cheapest thing on the grocery shelf. Yet it is one of the most amazing things to ground yourself, to feel in luxury, to give love to yourself. That is it. And so when you're alone, you can do things that are fun. Light some candles and have a detox bath. Put on your favorite music, or well, somebody said the other day, find something, choose something, I should say, that you know evokes happiness within you. Play a favorite album that makes you feel absolutely awesome, right? Replay an experience in your mind. Touch something you got from somewhere that was fun, and replay that experience, that fun experience in your mind. I mean, you can do a lot of different things. You're not alone. You're just, you're filling your own time with loving yourself. I just listen, you're alone for a reason. The reason is to reconnect with yourself. Instead of, it's a negative thing. No, it's a positive thing. Reconnecting with yourself is good. That's a good thing. Because when you reconnect with yourself and you start feeling that love you have for yourself and treating yourself with the respect and dignity and love that you know you deserve, that resonates outward. And when it resonates outward, it's reflected back to you in terms of people coming into your life that validate that about you instead of validating that you feel alone. Hope I'm making sense.
That's fantastic. Oh, no, it's so eloquent, Michael, and so poignant. And I love that you're saying we need to recognize that we deserve to be loved. And perhaps the greatest love you can express is that love of your own truth. As you said, you don't need external validation to know what you know, because that knowing is the universe's ultimate creative energy flowing through you. You start to express that and you start to practice that self-love. And if we commit, and perhaps that's an exercise that maybe I'll embrace this week or even for the next 48 hours or something like that, commit to observing your speech and consciously replacing every time that you want to say something that's the opposite of positive, such as I'm alone. Even if you have to say, you're never alone.
That's right. I'm never alone. I'm never alone. I'm never alone. Let's just take that as a knowing, as a truth that you're never alone. Whether you believe it or not wholly, just embracing the thought, the knowledge that that's the case, can actually change things for you. It can change things. And because when you refuse to expand your reach in terms of knowledge, then you stagnate. You stagnate in the face of continual change anyway. And that's doesn't lead to anything good in terms of a narrative, in terms of feeling joy. I mean, I don't know. If I'm alone in this house without a dog, a cat, and my girlfriend, I'm going to sit down and play the drums for a while.
That's great.
Right? Because I feel awesome
for
when
you.
I'm doing it. Right? So, or I'm going to go outside and or go down to the putting green and practice my putting, or I'll do something that makes me feel good. I'll put on some music and I'll dance in the kitchen, that kind of thing.
Right.
Because we all have that capability, man. We all have that. There are
connection.
So many different things that we can do.
Yeah. It is. It's your connection. When you play the drums, you're expressing your love of music. You're grounding yourself. You're doing something that's self-full and nurturing of self, as the same thing as a detox bath, or if I'm out walking the dogs, or I have my fingers in the dirt planting seeds. It's the fall, but I put perennials in because guess what? I want to have new flowers coming up in the spring. And I hope that they make it. But I'm nurturing that. I'm planting that. And it's sort of the same thing. And perhaps maybe that's what the you-knows are. It sort of is becoming this foundation.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. That's just this. We are. I'm fascinated. I am fascinated by the knowledge, the knowing that we are the creators of the universe, and most specifically of our own universe. And that's a really, really mind-blowing thing to wrap your head around. Yet, it's true. And the fact that we have been taught otherwise is I'm not going to say disgrace. I won't go down that road. But it's a shame that more people don't realize that. Your whole life changes when you take control of your own life narrative. When you recognize that what other people say is what they say. I think it was Dr. David Clement today. It was so funny when he said, "Yeah, when I'm up there, I could stand in front of these Arcturian beings who do nothing other than emanate joy and love and pure delight." Remember that word, pure delight. That's what they emanate. Is I could dance and go crazy and have a conniption fit and go absolutely bonkers in front of them, and all they're doing is just smiling at me, smiling, because it's something I talked about in a book over 20 years ago. We do not have to invest in external circumstances. We do not have to invest. We have to be more cognizant of the fact and know with absolute certainty that whatever's happening externally doesn't always require any kind of response whatsoever.
Right.
Whether it's positive, it could be none whatsoever. We feel we have to respond because we've been conditioned that when somebody calls you a dirty name, you have to respond. You have to, protect yourself. You have to tell them where to go. You have to tell them what they can do. You have to somehow fight back. No. You can simply smile and keep going. It's not a disgraceful thing to do. Quite frankly, it's you showing that you own your power, that you own your sovereignty. And bottom line is, they won't come back to you again because you resonate on a different frequency than they do.
Right.
And they'll recognize that and, okay, this isn't working, right? So I tell people this is what befuddles me about young people being bullied nowadays. What they do is they go after the bully. When the bully's not going to stop, they're not looking at the underlying reasons why the bully's the bully. They he's got a bad home life, he was never taught this, blah, blah, blah. The bottom line is, look, the person if that person who's been bullied is feeling less than because somebody said something to them or did something online or elsewhere, what needs to happen is that particular individual, that soul, needs to know that they are the one in command of how they feel. It's not some external circumstance, but they themselves are in control of that. And that has to be hammered home to them, that they are powerful beings. And that power comes from an understanding that they are the ones who dictate how they feel and what they're thinking and how they feel about themselves and the way they respond to everything. Teach that superpower of sovereignty.
It is.
At every turn.
And there's power in that silence. Yep, you're right.
Yeah.
And that, as you said, there is that silence. And when we are silent, it allows us that moment. Instead of agreeing with that individual and engaging, I used to always say, if I threw you a ball and you throw it back to me, we have a game. But if I throw you the ball and you put it down and you walk away, there is no game. And that's my truth, because I don't like to play games like that. I would prefer to be in a different space where I can be more elevated. And I trust in my knowing that that's my truth. One of my favorite personal affirmations of global change is from Gandhi: be the change you wish to see in the world. And I know that you and I are one. Everything that we do to another human being, we fundamentally do to ourselves. And separation is just an illusion. So when we affirm our own truth, that I know, you know, we're affirming the truth of the whole. You and I are one. So I'm wondering if phrase you know may be one of those phrases that carries just that, a deep truth. It may be something that is part of the mechanism for realizing this new vision, if you want to call it a higher dimension. I don't know. But I believe that it's defined by love, harmony, and peace. And that perhaps this widespread subconscious use of you know is not a mistake, that it's a deep truth of our inner knowing, attempting to elevate humanity collectively. Perhaps that's, you know, is that unconscious way of reclaiming our sovereignty, and it's reminding each and every one of us that that knowing is within you, it's in with me. And love, again, the same thing. We're mirroring that to each other. So I'm saying you know, and I'm asking that other person to reflect that back. Because as we affirm that, we're creating a quiet collective agreement on the truth of unity consciousness. If you know is elevating our individual high vibration, centered knowing, the more the entire field of consciousness is elevated. That is perhaps how the collective shifts. I think that's beautiful.
Beautiful. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a fabulous conversation, and one that I hope will create a shift in the minds of our listeners here on PRNFM. I very much hope so, because this is the kind of this information that we share, that we reveal to you, is going to take your life in a whole different direction. There's no doubt about it. However along you are in terms of spiritual awareness or your own understanding of your place in the universe, which is on a throne just like everybody else. You know, we're all captains of our own universe, and we're the creators of our own universe, of our own reality. The idea of reconnecting with your knowing, with what you already know, but maybe have forgotten, for sure have forgotten, can be a powerful thing. And if you allow it to happen, if you let yourself eliminate all the beliefs that are preventing you from being the full expression of who you were meant to be, things will change for you. That's really what it is. There's a bunch of beliefs. You have to get rid of those beliefs and start believing in the fact that you are this powerful being who already knows everything. It's just looking to remember who you are, why you're here, the power you have, the innate power you were born with that maybe you haven't tapped into yet. And if you have, maybe tapping into it further to shift your life, to continue to shift your life in a direction that elicits more joy and happiness and love and excitement for you. I hope so. But this has been a great conversation, and Lisa, as usual, we're going to do this again.
Yeah, it's been beautiful, Michael. I absolutely, I just absolutely love this conversation. It was fantastic. I feel it in my heart and my soul. And you know what I'm going to say next. Until next time.
Go ahead.
Love and peace out.
Peace out.
Keep well. Peace out.